Pi days are awesome. They only bake up once a year. We'll bring you a slice of info about that later today on CNN Student News. First up, a vote. Will Crimea, a region of Ukraine, become part of Russia? 2 million people live there, and their local government has scheduled a referendum for Sunday that could determine their political future. Many Crimeans want closer ties to Russia. There's a good chance they'll vote for it. But the new leaders of Ukraine, as well as the U.S. and some other members of the international community, say the vote goes against Ukraine's constitution, that this part of the country can't just break off from it and join another country. Russia would likely welcome that decision. We're bringing you two very different perspectives on this today. First, from the capital of Ukraine, where many people want closer ties with Europe than with Russia.
Now this is Independence Square, the Maidan they call it, where the protest movement began and so many people lost their lives. But the story, of course, has now moved hundreds of miles away to Crimea. So we're going to ask young people here what they think about the possibility of losing part of their country.
I think that this would be a disaster. This definitely would be a disaster because we consider Crimea as a part of Ukraine, and those people who live there, despite the fact that they speak Russian, they are Ukrainian.
This referendum is completely illegal, and all this is inspired by Russian agents and foolish people who thinks that in another country they will have a better life than in their own country.
Already some in Crimea are leaving, many heading to Kiev to be with family and friends, not wanting to wake up next week in another country. Michael Holmes, CNN, Kiev, Ukraine.
Very different take on this in the Russian capital of Moscow. We've talked about how Crimea gives Russia access to its only warm water port in the Black Sea. So it's important strategically to Russia, but as Phil Black found, it's important in other senses as well.
At Moscow's Danilovsky market, you'll find quality food, middle-class shoppers, and workers who aren't quite so well off. This microcosm of the Russian capital is a long way from the Crimean Peninsula, but almost everyone here says they feel a connection to it. Crimea was always Russian, and it should stay Russian, Anatoly says. Not surprisingly, Vladimir Putin's handling of the crisis is popular, which explains approval ratings up around 68%. Absolutely, I support him. That's not even up for discussion, Irina says. Well done, Putin. I'm extremely grateful we have such a leader. Most of these people admit they're informed by Russian media, much of which is controlled by the state. Ina knows Western reporting tells a different story. She wants Crimea to stay with Ukraine. It's a minority view. Most believe Crimea is like the delicacies available here at the market, a vital part of Russia's history and culture.
It's been more than 6 days since Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 vanished over Southeast Asia. And when we produced this show, there was no word on what happened to it or the 239 people aboard. U.S. officials said on Thursday they might expand their search area to look in parts of the Indian Ocean. That's far west of the last known location of the flight between Malaysia and Vietnam. They said there's new information that the plane could have flown for hours after its transponder stopped working and quit sending signals of the plane's location and altitude. Some experts are saying it's possible that the jet's engines might have been sending info to satellites for 4 or 5 hours after the last transponder signal. But even that's not certain. And Chinese satellite photos that appeared to show something floating off the Malaysian coast turned up nothing.
Time for the shout out. A 22-year-old is considered to be part of which generation? If you think you know it, shout it out. Is it Millennials, Baby Boomers, Silent Generation, or Generation X? You've got 3 seconds. Go. People born in the 1980s or 90s are generally considered to be millennials. That's your answer, and that's your shout out.
When it comes to money, millennials tend to have less of it than previous generations like Gen Xers or baby boomers. Millennials' student loan debt is higher, their unemployment is higher. Despite that, they're optimistic about the future. In a recent Pew survey, 85% of millennials said they either had enough money to lead the lives they want or that they expect to one day. It's interesting how their generation is impacting housing in the U.S.
It's the fastest growing part of the housing market you may not see in your neighborhood. New apartment buildings popping up everywhere, now with the largest share of total new home construction since the 1970s. New rental apartment projects surged 56% in 2011, 36% in 2012, 25% last year, and they're forecast to rise 9% this year. So has this rental rise reached the top floor? Experts say, not yet. Why? Call it housing's millennial effect. Unemployment still stubbornly high for younger Americans. And many already owe tens of thousands in student loans. When millennials find a job, they just want a roof over their head, not a mortgage. Plus, credit is tight, so buying is tough, a down payment even tougher. Also, millennials value mobility, and urban areas offer convenience. That demand pushing up rent prices across the U.S. Rents up 3% over the past year, and nearly twice that in renter-heavy cities like San Jose, San Francisco, Seattle, and Boston. But long-term, the millennial effect could produce a familiar result. As this generation grows up, has children, finds more steady employment, the need for more space and the financial prospects of owning a home could push millennials into single-family homes and lift the housing market for everyone else. Christine Romans, CNN, New York.
A royal welcome to all of our kingly viewers in the Midwest today, starting with the River Kings and Queens of Clinton, Iowa. They're watching from Washington Middle School. Next, long live the Kingsmen of Penn High School. They're online in Mishawaka, Indiana. And we'll wrap our royal journey in Kingman, Kansas, home of the Eagles of Kingman High School. Anyone can learn to solve for X, but no one has solved pi. The Guinness World Record for reciting numbers in pi is held by a Chinese man who memorized just under 68,000 digits. We usually just abbreviate it to 3.14. That makes today, 3/14, March 14th, Pi Day. Who doesn't like pie? Whether it's an old-fashioned apple pie, the Oscar-winning Life of Pi, a pepperoni pizza pie, unless it's a slice of humble pie, it brings us together. Of course, if you drop the E in it, you'll drop some of the enthusiasm. But the true mathletes out there can always bake up a little fun on Pi Day. It's celebrated every year on March 14th. That's 314 is in the first few digits of pi, the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. You could call our fascination with it irrational, and that's just the kind of number it is, an irrational one. It just goes on without stopping or repeating, at least as far as we know. Computers have calculated pi to its 2 quadrillionth digit. Don't ask me what that means. I majored in telecommunications. What I can tell you is that when it comes to this ratio, the pi's the limit. I know a lot of you like it when we pile on puns. A lot of you count on it. We could just say good pie without any good pie puns, without waving good pie, without adding a single word. But given the chance to cook up a report like that, something that could apple to a lot of students, something that could really oven things out at the end of the week, well, you can always trust us to try our very best, make or bake, and aim for a refreshing batch of Friday Pi Day puns. Woo! All right, we're going to leave you with some images we've seen on CNN Student News throughout the week. I'm Carl Azus. See you Monday.